The Piranha Buffet. On December 3, 2011, in the small Bolivian town of Rosario del Llata, an 18-year-old man stumbled along the muddy banks of a river after a night of heavy drinking. The river was swollen from recent rains, its current stronger than usual, and its dark waters concealed countless schools of fish. Ignoring the warnings of his companions, he leapt into the water. At first, it seemed like a reckless prank, but within seconds, splashes turned into thrashing. The young man began screaming as the water boiled around him. Villagers rushed to the river's edge and recognized the unmistakable rage of piranhas. These fish, with razor-sharp teeth and powerful jaws, rarely kill people, but when conditions are right, low water levels, blood in the water, or a vulnerable victim, they can attack in terrifying numbers. The group tried desperately to pull him back to shore, but the damage was already catastrophic. His body was covered in deep wounds, strips of flesh torn away by dozens of bites. Blood poured into the river, drawing even more fish to the surface. By the time they managed to drag him onto the bank, his injuries were beyond saving. He bled to death only minutes later. Police investigators noted that alcohol likely played a role, dulling his instincts and delaying his reactions. Some locals even suggested it might have been intentional, but the official report listed it as a fatal accident. International headlines quickly seized on the story, playing into the long-standing fear of the Amazon's most infamous fish. Biologists were quick to point out that such attacks are not common, and that most piranhas feed opportunistically on insects, other fish, or carrion. Yet, in this case, the combination of intoxication, poor judgment, and bad timing created a nightmare scenario. Crocodile lunch break. On December 7, 2010, South African explorer Hendry Coetzee was leading two American kayakers down the Lukuga River in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Coetzee, known in the adventure community as Kadoma, had already etched his name into history by paddling the full length of the Nile and charting wild stretches of water few outsiders had ever seen. For him, rivers were highways into untouched parts of Africa, and this was another bold expedition. The trio had already survived rapids and long days of rain. That morning, the water seemed calm, the surface smooth except for the occasional ripple. The forest pressed in tight on both banks, a wall of reeds and elephant grass concealing whatever watched from the shadows. They knew the river held crocodiles, but the animals usually kept their distance. Small ones sometimes basked on the banks or drifted half-submerged, but the giants were rarely seen. As the kayaks moved silently downstream, it happened without warning. From below the surface, a Nile crocodile surged upward. It slammed into Coetzee's boat, knocking it off balance, and seized him in its massive jaws. His companions, Ben Stooksbury and Chris Korbelik, watched helplessly as their leader was wrenched from his kayak. The predator dragged him under with terrifying speed, and in seconds, the river closed over them both. The two Americans sat frozen, scanning the water, waiting for him to resurface, but the river stayed silent. Coetzee was gone. His friends knew the crocodile, weighing over half a ton and longer than a small car, had made survival impossible. They paddled to shore in shock, later recounting the attack to authorities and the world. The news spread quickly. Headlines described how one of the most experienced rivermen alive had been taken in the most sudden and brutal way. His body was never recovered. Hungry Komodo Incident. On June 4, 2007, in the village of Komodo on Indonesia's remote island chain, children played along dusty paths that cut through thorny brush and dry savanna. It was the height of the dry season. Streams had turned into trickles, and watering holes shrank into mud. Deer and goats, the usual prey of Komodo dragons, were harder to find. The giant lizards, sometimes stretching over 7 feet, began wandering closer to villages in search of food. 8-year-old Mansur left the company of his friends and stepped behind a bush to relieve himself. He was only a few steps from the main path when the silence broke. A Komodo dragon, concealed in the undergrowth, lunged with terrifying speed. Its serrated teeth sank into the boy, and its massive claws raked across his body. The attack was sudden and brutal. Villagers nearby heard the screams and rushed toward the sound. They found Mansur pinned by the reptile, the dragon thrashing and tearing at him. Men hurled stones, struck with sticks, and shouted in desperation. After a frantic struggle, they managed to drive the predator back into the bush, but the damage was done. The boy's wounds were catastrophic. Blood poured freely from deep lacerations, and his small frame grew pale. He was carried quickly toward the harbor, where a boat would take him to the nearest medical post. But the journey was long and the injuries too severe. Before they could reach help, Mansur succumbed to his wounds. His death sent shockwaves through the island community. The tragedy marked the first confirmed fatal Komodo dragon attack on a human in more than 30 years. For locals, the threat was always known, but rarely did it claim a life so close to home. Park officials immediately tightened restrictions, warning tourists and villagers alike never to wander alone or stray from designated paths. Biologists explained that hunger and drought may have driven the lizard to target a human. The Armor Incident. On September 10, 2020, in the remote forests of Rondônia, Brazil, 56-year-old Riele Franciscado was on patrol with a small team of police officers and local scouts. For over 3 decades, Franciscado had worked with Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, FUNAI. He was known as one of the country's most experienced experts on isolated tribes, dedicating his life to protecting groups that chose to remain uncontacted from outside threats like loggers, miners, and disease. That morning, reports had come in of sightings near the edge of the Uru-Uauau Reserve. Franciscado's mission was delicate, to observe from a distance and ensure that no hostile outsiders threatened the group. His team moved carefully through the dense vegetation, stopping often to listen to the jungle around them. Then, without warning, the silence broke. A figure hidden in the undergrowth released an arrow. It flew across the clearing and struck Franciscado in the chest, piercing just above his heart. Witnesses saw him stagger back, clutching at the wound, and cry out for help. He managed only a few steps before collapsing to the ground. The police rushed to his side, but the injury was devastating. Within minutes, Franciscado was dead. The assailants vanished back into the forest. For the uncontacted group, the men in uniform may have looked like intruders. For Franciscado, the fatal arrow came from the very people he had spent his career trying to protect. News of his death spread quickly. Reuters, The Guardian, and major Brazilian outlets reported on the tragedy. Colleagues described him as calm, dedicated, and deeply respected, a man who believed the best way to defend uncontacted peoples was by keeping them unseen and undisturbed. Tribes that remain in isolation are often violently displaced when outsiders move into their land. Franciscado's work had been to shield them from those dangers. Ironically, it was his presence on the edge of their territory that cost him his life. Caiman Happy Meal. On July 23, 2010, in Rondônia, a remote state in western Brazil, children played along the banks of a wide river. It was late afternoon, the air heavy with humidity, and the surface of the water looked calm. Just below that surface, however, lurked one of the Amazon's most dangerous predators, the black caiman, Melanosuchus niger. An 11-year-old child stepped too close to the water's edge. In an instant, the surface erupted. A massive caiman, likely over 13 feet long, surged forward with explosive speed. Its jaws clamped down, teeth puncturing deep into flesh, and with one powerful twist, it dragged the child into the river. The attack was silent, except for the screams that followed. Villagers raced toward the shoreline, shouting and waving sticks, but the predator was already gone. The black caiman is the largest member of the alligator family in South America, capable of overpowering even adults. Against a child, there was no chance. By the time others reached the spot, the water was still again, the only sign of the struggle a few ripples spreading across the surface. When the body was recovered, doctors and researchers documented the case carefully. It became one of the few fatal black caiman attacks published in medical literature, with details of the bite marks and the sheer crushing force of the animal's jaws. Scientists noted how rare such incidents are, but also how swift and final they become once they happen. Unlike a snake bite or a jaguar attack, there is almost no window for rescue. For the community, those details mattered little. The death of the child sent waves of grief through the village. Parents pulled their children away from the water, and local leaders cleared vegetation along dangerous bends to improve visibility. Night fishing trips were curtailed, and new rules were passed on where children could swim. The Python Incident. On July 2, 2024, in South Sulawesi, Indonesia, 36-year-old Siriati left her village early in the morning. She planned to walk a familiar path to the local market, where she would buy medicine for one of her children. The track ran along the edge of dense forest, a place villagers knew to be home to giant reticulated pythons. These snakes can grow more than 26 feet long and are powerful enough to crush and swallow a person whole. When Siriati did not return, her husband set out to look for her. Along the path, he found her sandals and a discarded scarf. Just meters away lay a massive python, motionless, its belly grotesquely distended. The scene was clear to anyone who had lived in these forests. The snake had swallowed her. Villagers gathered quickly. With machetes, they killed the reptile and cut it open. Inside was Siriati's body, still intact, curled within the coils of the giant snake. She had been attacked, constricted, and consumed in the space of minutes. For the husband and the 5 children she left behind, the discovery was almost unbearable. The case drew national and international attention. Images of the dissection spread across newspapers and social media. Authorities confirmed that this was not an isolated incident. Only weeks earlier, another woman named Farida had been swallowed whole in the same province. Experts explained that encounters may be increasing as human activity pushes deeper into forested areas and traditional prey species decline. The Snake Man Incident. On March 24, 2004, in Prachinburi, Thailand, crowds gathered to watch a performance by Boonrong Buachan. Known nationwide as the Snake Man, he had built a career on daring stunts with venomous reptiles. Years earlier, he had earned a Guinness World Record by spending 7 days in a glass enclosure with dozens of deadly snakes. To his fans, he seemed untouchable, a man who could control danger with his bare hands. That afternoon, Buachan stood in front of the crowd with a cobra. The snake was restless, hood flaring, tongue flicking as it searched the air. Spectators leaned forward, waiting for the moment when handler and reptile would clash. For Buachan, it was routine. He had done this hundreds of times before. Then the strike came. The cobra lunged, its fangs piercing his flesh. Gasps echoed through the audience, but the snake man waved it off. Some thought he had suffered one of his epileptic seizures, a condition he was known to have. Valuable minutes slipped away before the seriousness of the bite was clear. Bystanders rushed him to a local hospital. Doctors tried desperately to counteract the venom, but the neurotoxins spread quickly. The poison paralyzed his breathing, shutting down his body from the inside. Within hours, the man who had spent his life in the company of snakes was dead. News spread across Thailand and beyond. The irony of his death, killed by the very creatures that had made him famous, captured headlines. Experts noted that even the most experienced handlers are never fully safe. Cobra venom can kill within 30 minutes, and without immediate access to antivenom, survival is unlikely. Boonrong Buachan was remembered as both fearless and reckless, a man who lived by pushing the limits of what humans and snakes could share on a stage. The Jaguar Incident. On September 1, 2014, in the Rupununi Savannah on the edge of Guyana's rainforest, villagers set out to collect food and firewood. The forest here is thick, with tangled roots and dense canopy, and it is also prime hunting ground for the jaguar, South America's most powerful predator. Usually, jaguars keep to themselves, preying on deer, capybara, and peccaries. But when one decides to stalk a person, the result is almost always fatal. That day, a middle-aged man walked alone into the bush. When he did not return, a search party followed his trail. They found signs of a struggle, broken branches, blood on the leaves, and claw marks dug deep into the soil. Hours later, his body was discovered, mauled and partially eaten. The tracks around him left no doubt. He had been taken by a jaguar. Wildlife officials confirmed the attack, noting that the animal had likely grown old or injured and turned to easier prey. In the villages of southern Guyana, such encounters are feared but not unheard of. Jaguars are silent ambushers, capable of leaping from close range and crushing a skull with a single bite. In dense jungle, a victim has little chance to react before the predator is on top of them. The death caused panic in the community. Parents kept children indoors, and hunters moved in larger groups. Authorities eventually tracked the jaguar and killed it after it charged another group of men. Even then, fear remained. The Hornet Massacre. On October 4, 2013, in a remote part of Anini district in Arunachal Pradesh, India, villagers entered the forest to gather food and firewood. The jungle there is alive with insects, many harmless, but some deadly. That morning, the group disturbed a nest of Asian giant hornets, among the largest and most aggressive wasps in the world. The swarm erupted with terrifying speed. Dozens of hornets descended on the villagers, their stingers delivering repeated injections of potent venom. Victims screamed and ran, but the insects pursued relentlessly through the trees. Their stings caused searing pain, swelling, and in many cases, deadly anaphylactic shock. By the time rescuers arrived, the scene was chaotic. Bodies lay on the ground, some already lifeless, others writhing in agony. More than 20 people were killed in the attack, with dozens more rushed to hospitals miles away. Survivors described the insects as flying daggers that seemed impossible to escape. Medical teams struggled to treat the victims. Many had received dozens of stings, their organs shutting down under the flood of venom. Local newspapers reported it as one of the worst hornet attacks in the region's history, devastating an entire community in a single morning. In the aftermath, officials warned villagers to stay away from hornet nesting sites and launched campaigns to locate and destroy nests near settlements. The massacre was a reminder that in the jungle, death does not always come with claws or teeth. Sometimes it comes buzzing from above, in swarms too fast to fight and too deadly to endure. Bullseye in Brazil. On September 3, 1961, in the dense jungles of Pará, Brazil, 26-year-old Richard Mason was part of a British expedition attempting to chart the Iriri River, a tributary of the Xing. Alongside fellow explorers John Hemming and Kit Lambert, Mason had hacked trails through weeks of heat, rain, and swarms of insects. The team was young, ambitious, and determined to map one of the last unknown stretches of the Amazon. That afternoon, Mason walked alone along a supply trail to collect provisions. He carried nothing but basic gear, unaware that unseen eyes were following him from the trees. In this part of the forest lived a group then uncontacted by outsiders, a people who had never invited strangers into their land. To them, Mason was not an explorer. He was an intruder. As he made his way back toward camp, the attack began. Arrows hissed from the shadows, striking his body. Then men rushed forward, beating him with heavy wooden clubs. By the time his companions realized something was wrong and ran to find him, Mason was lying dead on the ground, surrounded by the weapons that had ended his life. The killers melted back into the forest. For days, the team struggled with shock as they carried Mason's body out of the jungle. He was later buried in Rio de Janeiro, far from the riverbanks he had hoped to chart. Only years later did researchers confirm that the attackers were members of the Panara, also known as the Creen Akaror, an uncontacted tribe fiercely protective of their land. The expedition ended in tragedy. Hemming, who survived, later wrote extensively about the Amazon and indigenous peoples, haunted always by the death of his friend. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.